Hi everyone, this is Chandan. You're watching Educate India. Today we are going to create one build pipeline using Azure DevOps Pipeline, and we will be using the YAML based Azure DevOps Pipeline. So in this video we'll understand how can we create Azure DevOps YAML pipeline for any .NET type of project. So it's very quick and hands-on video. We have a website project, and within that we have a model, view and controller, and we have some CSS/HTML files. So we are gonna just build this particular project using Azure DevOps YAML pipeline, and we'll create some .NET build steps. So before starting that Azure DevOps YAML pipeline, first we need to understand if you want to create any pipeline or YAML pipeline, so how can we create that and what are the different things we need to take care before proceeding to create the pipeline. We need to understand very basic steps. So for any pipeline we can use this pipeline option here within the Azure DevOps, and here we can just create any new pipeline in Azure DevOps using this option called new pipeline. So once we click here, so it asks where is your code. So this is simply asking like where is our code for that we want to build the pipeline. The code means our repository or whatever we need to build, right? So where is our code? So that we need to decide here. So our code we can see is at the same Azure DevOps repos. So if I can show that code, so I'm just going to repos, opening the files here, we can see we have a website. We'll go back to the pipeline option, and then we'll select new pipeline, and then we'll select where is the code. So we'll simply select our code is at Azure repos git. So here I can select the repository. So the repository is Educate India, so I'll select that, and then it gives us option to configure the pipeline. So either we can select some predefined templates that will add some kind of predefined task that just help us to build the pipeline quickly, or we can also create a starter pipeline, or if we have any YAML file already existing and available at any repository, we can select that YAML file. We are gonna select starter pipeline. Here it means that we are just saying that we need to create a new pipeline, a YAML pipeline. We don't have any existing YAML file, we need to create a new YAML file. So let's select the starter pipeline. So it's saying start with a minimal pipeline that you can customize to build and deploy your code. So let's select that. So it just adds some basic few lines of codes mentioning the triggers, pool and steps. So we can see trigger is, it's a continuous integration trigger. So what is a continuous integration? It's like whenever developer pushes the code to the repository to any branch, it should automatically trigger the pipeline. So trigger is basically to trigger the pipeline automatically. So that's first step, and then it added a pool like where the job will actually run. So it's a kind of build agent we need to configure. We are saying VM image as Ubuntu latest, so we can define any VM image. If we have any kind of virtual machine, if we can create on any cloud, and then we can also configure those build agent here by defining that particular build agent name. So here we need to define the VM image build agent where the actual pipeline is gonna run, right? Whatever commands and steps we are going to define, that needs some kind of machine where these things can run. So that machine or VM we need to define in the pool, and then finally we need to define the pipeline steps. So this is kind of list of steps that will run as part of this pipeline execution. So we can see here we have just steps, and within the steps we can write the script. So it's kind of inline script. So we can run any command, we can give a display name of that step, so whenever pipeline will run, that will show like what this step or script is actually doing. And here also we have one more script, and then again display name. So that's how we can add multiple steps. We can add multiple scripts based on our pipeline needs, and we can just configure our pipeline YAML file. This is a kind of YAML schema that generally we follow if you're gonna create any YAML pipeline within the Azure DevOps. So first we have stages. So stages are just collection of stages. So maybe we can have stages first, and that stages will have stage A, stage B, stage C, n number of stages. So stage is a group of jobs. So within the stage we generally define jobs. So job 1, job 2, again we can define within one stage. There can be multiple jobs, and within the job we have the actual steps. So job can be collection of different steps. We are calling it job. I'll cover these concepts in the upcoming videos, but here we are not going to discuss about all those things. We are going to simply use the step. So also we can skip these things, like if you don't want to create stage, if you don't want to create job for very basic pipeline, so we can directly define steps. Also here we can see we have just step, right? And that step can have the scripts, but it is recommended if you want to build a production pipeline or pipeline that you are actually going to deploy your software to production environment, that should have proper schema, where you should have proper stage, proper deployments, where you can configure the environments, and that will have the actual steps. But for this particular video we are going to only discuss about the steps. So I have already created, just to save the time, I have already created a very basic pipeline. We can see here we have trigger, that is we are saying main. So main is a trigger, means any developer is pushing the code to the main branch, automatically this pipeline should run. And then we are defining the pool, again build agent pool as Ubuntu latest, and then we have the steps. So in the step we can see we have script and task. Task also can be part of the steps. So task, these are kind of predefined task by the Azure DevOps. They are giving some different predefined task that we can use. So we are using .NET task here, and also we can have multiple different tasks. We can refer the Azure DevOps official documentation for these predefined tasks. So within the steps we are defining multiple different kind of task and script that will perform a particular activity. So step 1 is to use .NET, means we are going to install .NET. So our build agent is simply a machine, right? So we want to execute some of the .NET commands. So first we need to install .NET SDK in that machine. So first step is we are installing the .NET SDK on build agent. So we are defining version as 8.x, any 8 version of .NET it's gonna install. So we can define any version that we want to use here. And then step 2 is the restore NuGet package, or the restore command that will restore all the dependencies. So we are running simply .NET restore command. And then third step is .NET build. So here this is gonna actually perform the .NET build operation with some additional parameters. We are running the build, and here we are just giving the display name as build solution. So this will be displayed whenever the pipeline will run. And then we are running .NET test. As part of this particular project we have not added the test cases, but if you want to run some of the test cases as part of the .NET pipeline or this particular build pipeline, we can run the unit test cases. So that can also be performed as one of the step. So here we are also defining, we are running .NET test command to run the test. And then once we have just built the solution, we have run the unit test cases, then we are saying .NET publish. So it's gonna publish the artifact, generate all those executables that will be actually used to deploy, right? So this is just publish the output for the deployment. And once we are done with the .NET publish, then we are uploading the artifacts to Azure DevOps. So the next step is we are running a task, publish build artifacts. That's gonna upload the build artifacts to Azure DevOps. And we are just naming artifact name as drop, so we can see those artifacts as part of the pipeline run. And later on we will need a CD pipeline that we'll discuss in the upcoming video. So this is just building the solution, building the .NET solution, and then finally generating the artifact and uploading that artifact to Azure DevOps. Now the artifact is ready to deploy. So that particular thing can be done by the CD pipeline. We generally say continuous deployment. So we can create a release pipeline or CD pipeline. Using that we can just pull this artifact and deploy to our any destination server wherever we want to host this particular application. So this is very basic steps that we're going to use. So I'm just I'll just copy this pipeline and then I'll just apply it here. I'll just paste it here in the YAML section, so we can see we have the same file, and now I have option to save and run or save. So save, just it's gonna save that particular pipeline, and save and run will also run this pipeline. So we will click on save and run. So here it's saying that we need to commit this pipeline, so we need to store this file somewhere, right? Because it's a new file we are creating, but currently this does not exist at anywhere. So we need to store this file. So what we're gonna do, we are just gonna commit this directly to the master branch of the solution, wherever of the .NET project, wherever it exists. We're gonna commit this file there. We can define our folder structure or file strategy. Maybe if you want to create any pipeline for production environment, we can define a proper folder structure for where to store these pipeline files, and then from there we can just refer here in the pipeline. So I'll just keep this message as default, and I'll just commit it to master branch. So let's click on save and run. This build has just queued, and we can see it started running. It's just checking out the project, and then it's installing the .NET SDK. So we can see here successfully installed .NET Core 8.0, and then it's just restoring dependencies, determining project to restored here csproj, and then building the solution. We can see build succeeded, 1 warning and 0 errors. And then it's trying to run the unit test case. Currently we don't have any unit test case, so we can skip this for now. And then it's publishing the artifact. So it's generating all those artifacts that we need to deploy. So we can see it's generating website.dll, views.views.dll, and all those files. And then finally it's uploading the build artifact. So we can see file upload succeeded, so it's uploading that to Azure DevOps build artifact staging directory. We can also see the artifact, so we can see our just pipeline has just succeeded, and we can go back to this pipeline, and we can see this is the pipeline we just ran just now. So also we can see this name is kind of a different. So if you want to change the name, we can click here, and we have option to rename or move. If you want to add it to any folder, or create a new folder and add this pipeline just to rearrange, we can do it here. I'll just first rename it. I'll say .NET CI, right? I'll just save it. So we can see here it's a .NET CI, and if you want to move it to any folder, so we can click on all. Here also we can create any folder. Let's say just create .NET folder. So this will create a folder, and we can go here and rename and move. We'll select that folder to rearrange it, and just click on save. You can see here this pipeline is part of this folder. So that's how we can just rearrange different pipelines in different folders. So now I'll click this pipeline, and I want to see that particular artifact. So we can see one published. If I'll click here, so we can see there's a drop folder, and within that we have all those executables that we want to deploy to any server, right? So this was a kind of very basic pipeline to build a .NET project using the YAML pipeline. In the upcoming video, I'll try to cover some different pipeline related to Docker, and if you have an image and that you want to build as part of Azure DevOps Pipeline, that will cover in the upcoming video. And now we can see also like that pipeline file should be part of the actual repo because we just committed that. So I'm inside that Educate India master branch, and we can see here we have this Azure pipelines file 4 minutes ago. We just added that. If I'll just open this, this is the same file that we just added. We have just added trigger as main, but we have master branch. So I'll just edit the trigger and I'll add it as master. Commit. So we can see we are just committing to directly a master branch, and we are adding the trigger to master. So any commit to master branch will trigger the build I'll go back to pipeline. We can see here it's triggered because we just committed, right? So we can see we were having one more. That's why build agent is in queue state. For now, I'll just cancel this. So that build agent will be available. Yeah, now the build agent is available. So that's gonna again perform the same activity, but I just want to show here how that trigger works. So any commit to the master branch will trigger this pipeline automatically. So let's assume if developer is gonna make some change in the code, so maybe I'll go to this website and maybe to model. I'll open this and I'll just edit this file directly just to show that. So I'm just adding a comment as test comment, and I'll just commit this to master branch. So we have already configured the trigger as master, so that means it will automatically run this pipeline. So developer has just pushed the code to the master branch, and we can see that pipeline should trigger again. Okay, so this is also another pipeline pointing to the same repository. That's why this is again triggering, but I'll cancel that one, and I want my .NET pipeline to run. So we can see it's running. That is because of that trigger. So that's how we can just configure our pipeline, and we can just run. If we have any type of project, maybe Java or any other framework we want to use, we can create those build pipelines in a similar way, or we need to just create all those basic steps to restore dependencies, build the actual project or solution, run the unit testing, and then publish the artifact, upload the build artifact. And finally, once the artifact is available in Azure DevOps, then we can create the release pipeline or any CD pipeline to pull those artifacts from that Azure DevOps and then actually deploy it to the destination server, so that application will be hosted or it will be running. So that's it for now. We'll cover more concepts in the upcoming video. Thanks for watching.